Have you ever wondered what happens when a bank screws up really, really badly, like so badly they're about to go belly up? Well, in the magical world of finance, they get a bailout. It's like a get out of jail free card, but instead of monopoly money, it's your tax dollars on the line. In the simplest terms, a bailout is when the government steps in to save a financial institution that's on the brink of collapse. This can be done in a few different ways. They might give the bank a big fat loan, buy up their toxic assets, which are basically like financial turds, or even just hand them a big pile of cash. Now, you might be thinking, that doesn't seem fair. Shouldn't banks face the consequences of their own actions? And you'd be right. But here's the kicker. Banks are considered too big to fail. The idea is that if one of these behemoths were to actually go under, it would trigger a domino effect, taking down the entire financial system with it. So, instead of risking financial Armageddon, the government steps in with its bottomless pockets and bails them out. The problem is these bailouts come with a hefty price tag. And guess who gets stuck footing the bill? That's right, folks, you and me, the taxpayers. Now let's talk about how these bailouts are even possible. Enter the Federal Reserve, or as I like to call it, the money printer go-bruh machine. The Fed is America's central bank, and it has the power to create money out of thin air. You see, money isn't just printed by the government. Well, it is, but that's just paper. The Fed lends money into existence. They do this by buying up government bonds and other assets. When they buy these assets, they pay for them with newly created money, which is then injected into the economy. Now, this might sound like some kind of wizardry, and frankly, it kind of is. But it's important to understand because this power to create money is at the heart of the bailout game. When a bank is on the ropes, the Fed can swoop in and buy up their crappy assets, essentially giving them a fresh injection of cash. And where does that cash come from? You guessed it, thin air. So we've got the Fed creating money out of thin air and handing it over to banks in trouble. But where does that leave the rest of us? Well, here's the thing. When banks have access to all this cheap, easy money, they tend to get a little reckless. Remember those toxic assets we talked about earlier? Those are often created when banks make risky loans, like subprime mortgages, to people who can't afford to pay them back. But hey, when money is basically free, why not gamble a little? And gamble they do. They lend this cheap money out at much higher interest rates than they pay to borrow it. That difference, my friends, is profit. Pure, easy profit. But here's the catch. These risky bets don't always pay off. And when they go bad, it's not the banks that feel the pain. It's the taxpayers who are left holding the bag. Remember 2008? The housing market crashed, banks were drowning in bad loans, and the entire financial system was teetering on the brink of collapse. That, my friends, was a prime example of what happens when banks make bad bets with other people's money. So what happened next? The government swooped in with a massive bailout, pumping trillions of dollars into the financial system to prevent a total meltdown. And the banks, they were bailed out, allowed to continue operating as if nothing had happened. Now here's the thing that really grinds my gears. The very same banks that were responsible for the crisis were the ones who benefited most from the bailout. They were deemed too big to fail, and the government was too scared to let them face the consequences of their actions. It's like watching a bunch of kids trash their parents' house, only to have their parents clean up the mess and hand them a wad of cash for their troubles.